Hello and welcome to the weather forecast.
Which is British for the weather report.
I didn't know that weather report was
cool, confusion.
American.
Yeah.
I grew up in the US, so
I think
endless
it's a business
confusion.
thing.
But yes,
Is it a cooker or an oven?
it's a stove.
Ah.
This is a new series of videos that we're planning on doing because we have been doing something internally for several months now that we thought players might actually be interested in doing with us, which is...
When you say internally, you mean like the two of us, not like as an organ. So every week we've been looking at some of the Steam releases upcoming and making a best guess for how well they're going to do in week one. Because as game developers, it's very useful to know what kind of prospects of success a game has. And some of our predictions have been good, some of them have been less good, so we thought we'd share with them with you, including the less good ones, and show some of our working.
And the whole purpose is we want to work out if there's a way that we can reliably predict what games are going to do what numbers. It isn't anything about value judgments of what games we think are good or bad. It's just about looking at the available data that we can scrape, all of which is public. We don't have any kind of insider knowledge here. And just seeing if we can work out, okay, that game has a lot of buzz at the minute, but maybe it's got some issue that we think from a design point of view might hold it back at launch, or that game doesn't appear to have much buzz, but looking at it, we've seen lots of games that look like it that have done really well at launch and exceeded expectation in the past. So these, I think, fortnightly videos, the plan is that we will go through the top 10 popular upcoming games on Steam for the next week, and we will estimate what reviews we think each game will get in its first week of sale. And by all means, please play along with us if you want. Take a look at the game and post your suggestions in the comments, and then you too can be smug if you're right, and maybe everyone will learn something.
I think it's worth saying as well, this don't take us too seriously. We're professional game developers, but
as you can tell from the professional setup and like the coffee pot,
in some cases, you know, we've done minutes of research, sometimes even several minutes of research. Some of these are developers we've never heard of, and we've made wild guesses. So I want to emphasise again, we have no inside knowledge about any of this.
But we want to hone our skills. So should we get started?
Go.
Right, let's get up the spreadsheet. The first game that we are talking about this week is Megacopter, Blades of the Goddess.
So my first impression was these folk know what they're doing. It's a very confidently presented game. It's a retro thing. It's the kind of thing that Steam often reacts well to. And they don't have that much traction as far as we can tell from publicly available data. They don't have that many wish lists, which is obviously the big detail. But it's clearly a fun-looking game. Can't speak for its quality. First-time dev. But they know what they're doing. So I'm going to guess 75 reviews in week one. And this is how we gauge success.
Yeah.
Most games, the vast majority of games on Steam, don't chart in the top 10. They just show up in the new and trending. But number of reviews in week one is a good way to gauge how well the game is actually selling. And there's a widely used metric in game dev world called the box lighter number. A gentleman from Mike and Greg Games, who noticed that basically for every review, a game's usually sold between 30 and 60 copies. The number goes up and down a bit. So I'm guessing Megacopter, Blades of the Goddess, 75 reviews week one.
Now, this is a genre that I'm not familiar with myself. I don't play many shmups, but I do know that it is popular enough that Steam had a shmup-focused Steam festival a couple of months back, so clearly there is appetite for it. It's clearly retro, it's deliberately old school. A lot of people actually really like that. That's a real plus point. So I'm guessing a very similar number of 84 reviews week one. Game two?
Game two.
Dystopika.
This is really interesting. What do you think?
I'm fascinated by this. Right, I'm actually really rooting for this. Okay, so number one, as a game dev, I'm legally required to love Blade Runner, and I do. So that's going well. So this game looks fantastic. It's very pretty. But what fascinates me is two things. One, that it describes itself as having no goals, no management, just creativity and dark, cozy vibes, which is a risky strategy because you're saying I'm selling a game fundamentally predicated on mechanics and there being things to do, and saying, but the point of this is actually kind of to set up a vibe rather than have a particular goal or gameplay, right? Which could be bad for this game, or it could be a real success story because it's doing something different. And the other thing that I find interesting about this game is that it was published by the same people who did Pools, which was a game that launched, I think a month or so ago, and did way better than I expected. We estimated this when we were doing our internal estimates before we started doing this this video series, and we massively underestimated it because it overperformed based on the metrics that we had available to us. And the reason it did this, I think, is because there was a really thriving sub-community, I think on places like Reddit, for what's called pool core, and it captured the attention of all these liminal space enthusiasts. So even though as a game it didn't have huge amounts of traction, it really resonated with a significant group of people who found out about it and got excited and bought it. So this might have the same impact. It might capture the same community I just don't see from my position of being a game dev and not making games like this, or it might not. I'm very interested in seeing how this does. So my estimate is week one, just under 300 reviews.
Will Wright, who was a big name game designer back in the day, I just be still making games, is the guy behind SimCity. Drew a distinction between games and toys. Games have goals, toys you just play with, and this is a toy in that sense, not a game. It's not a disc, but it's clearly something that you just play around with no goals. The developer, as far as I can tell from my literal seconds of research, is one bloke with a stylish lowercase website, and I'm not as sanguine as you. I think, obviously Pools did well from the same publisher. It's a really beautiful game. I will buy it. I think I'll probably then play it twice and be glad I had it. So I'm guessing only 120 reviews, which again, to be clear, is maybe 5,000-6,000 sales week one.
We should probably say as a baseline for anyone who isn't a professional game developer that I would expect anywhere between 100 and 500 reviews, somewhere in that bracket, to be your absolute kind of standard successful indie launch on PC. So anything that falls within that bracket, I think, is doing everything right. And of course, some games are just destined to get more sales on day one, whether because they're publishers or whether because they're in a hot genre or because PewDiePie played them the day before or whatever. But guessing, you said 120, that's a good indie success.
Yeah, for one person, unless he's spent 10 years on it, then that's great.
Game 3. Now I'm going to need something for game 3.
The bell.
I'm going to need the porn bell.
Is there porn on Steam, Lottie?
Okay, so you can hide it, but yes, there is a huge amount of porn on Steam, and a lot of them actually do very well. But what is interesting is very few traditional media or streamers or anybody tends to cover it, essentially because it's not safe for work, and that's something that people feel a bit funny about. So we're not saying everyone should go out and play explicit porn games, but I do think it's important to analyse porn games if they come up as part of the upcoming popular games list, because that reflects consumer behavior, right? Players are saying, I like this stuff, I want this stuff, and I think it behooves us as professionals to understand why, in the same way to understand.
I think it's also worth saying the vast majority of porn games that we've looked at as part of this exercise are commodities. They're piled high. Most of them don't get a lot of reviews. From our perspective, they look pretty interchangeable, although I'm sure the connoisseurs can tell the difference.
And I bet there are some connoisseurs watching right now. So we'll see. Okay, so this, I think, is more funny than your average porn game, such as I am aware. It has some pretty funny lines, but it is essentially does what it says on the tin. It's a sort of VN style anime, visual novel style anime porn game. So I'm guessing 118 reviews based on the numbers I could find.
Yeah, so normally I have this soundtrack when I click on screenshots for porn game and reviewing it. It goes sort of, crikey.
The fifth screenshot in a porn game is always like, I regret seeing that.
Yeah. And this one I'm going, oh, that's actually quite funny. Oh, crikey, eek. So I think the comedy makes it stand out a tiny bit based on publicly available data about likely wish lists. I'm going to guess 70 week one.
Hey, but we haven't finished doing porn because game 4 is X-Angels. Use the power of your virginity to defeat and humiliate the corrupt angels in this roguelike card battle thriller. So again, everything we just said about the last game kind of applies here. I think it's a bit odd that they've lent into the gameplay because it says it's a roguelike card battler. It does seem to be a fairly kind of complex system. And from the other porn games that I've seen, it tends to be there's deliberately light gameplay and then basically loads of porn images. So this is doing something a bit different, and I suspect, I don't know, I guess that maybe that would be
so it's a roguelike deck builders are huge on Steam at the moment. Things as a car battle theme. It's an up and coming genre.
It's a vibe.
It's a vibe. So I assume they decided to put some of that in there, and you know it'll probably do something good because it will get a car battle or roguelike deck builder tag, and a few more people will click it. And But I don't think the two styles particularly fit well
it's odd,
together.
isn't it?
So I'm going to guess 120 because it's actually got. I remember when I looked at the numbers.
Thing.
Surprisingly good traction on the back end.
So if I just went by the numbers that I can find, I would estimate that this game would get 445 reviews in week 1, which is an amazing success. And I think the maximum. We've never seen a porn game since we've been doing these estimates internally that has done that number. So I don't believe those maths are correct. And I'm going to apply what I'm going to call the embarrassment demultiplier to this, which is that people might buy it, but they're probably going to not leave a review because it will probably be publicly available on their Steam profile that they bought an explicit.
I think you overestimate the degree to which Steam gamers can be shamed.
Well, we'll see, won't we? This is the point of the video. Well, I'm going to guess 175 reviews week 1.
So we're pretty close. And for your, my demultiplier on this is I think a lot of people have followed it and probably wishlisted it based on thinking it's a roguelike deck builder and boobs, click. And when it comes to actually slapping down cash, I'm not sure people will be so excited. But yeah, call it 120.
Guess what? Let's go, Harem farm.
Why have you picked out all the pawns?
Yeah, this is unfortunate. Like sometimes, because obviously the list that we talk about is decided by what games happen to be launching at the end of the week and what games happen to be in the popular upcoming. And unfortunately, for the first video we're putting out, there's quite a lot of porn. But stick with us. There's some non-porn games too. So this is Let's Go My Harem Farm.
Not to be confused with Harem Ranch Life, which is coming next quarter.
Oh, look out for that one. It's old school JRPG. It's got kind of game... What's that engine called? Game maker assets. And I've seen a lot of games that look quite like it, so I'm only going to guess 46 reviews week 1.
Yeah, Japanese games are even harder than Chinese games for a Western dev to understand what's going on, because often there could be a whole franchise behind it, or it can be imported or something. This is Stardew Valley plus boobs, and I can see how that's a pitch. Again, I think it's an odd fit, but maybe if you want a sort of imaginary cyber companion with a nice smile and a bikini, it's a less weird one. So I'm a bit more optimistic. That word about this one. I'm going for 60 reviews week 1.
All right, this is. I swear to God, I can't believe I'm saying this. Okay, quiet. It's called Legend of the Master Beta.
Because it's a fishing game.
It's a fishing game. And this is weird. Now I had to say that horrible title. This is weird because it claims not to be a porn game, but it is clearly a porn game. So I don't know what is going on here. I don't know if they've actually messed up their Steam page and they haven't put the right tags on and they put in kind of basic screenshots, or if it's a ploy, because the publisher has done lots of other porn games. It does some highlights: Living with My Sister, Monochrome Fantasy, Summer Memories, also about incest. So I just don't understand. So I'm guessing...
it's a lot. Looking at the screenshots, none of them made me go, ooh, ee. There's just sort of a lot of young ladies in quite small outfits.
But the Steam tags don't mention anything to do with not safe for work.
No, but it's obviously a less alarming project than some of the other ones. I noticed, again, in my vast seconds of research, Kagura Games, the publisher, are importers. They localise Japanese games into English. Hence
the humorous title.
Well, yes, I wonder what it was called in Japanese originally, if it was, Delightful Fishing Valley or something.
Okay, well, I want to leave this game, so I'm going to guess 40 reviews.
I'm going to guess 9 reviews.
We will see. All right, this game is not porn.
Christ.
This is not porn. This game is called Dragon Eclipse.
I see what they're doing. It's a roguelike deck builder again, and it's Pokemon. Okay, these sound like sensible things to put together. It's an early access game, which often is has a slightly depressive effect on initial sales because people are cautious about it. And there seems to be more than one art style, and the art styles are, at least one of them is a slightly odd match for the genre. So I think that will push it down a bit further. We've seen a few games that look promising, but the art style isn't necessarily what people would expect. And that, I think, can put browsers off. So it's a first-time developer. The publisher has a track record, but there's a lot of different games. And it isn't overburdened with a wish list. So I'm going to guess 35 reviews this first week. I hope they do better. I think this one's quite charming.
I do agree. I think it's been made with love. I have just noticed that it's apparently similar to games like Culture Simulator, according to the Steam algorithm. So that's a game that we made.
It's got cards in.
It has got cards. That's probably the link. The one thing I would say on top of everything you've just said is that it's launching into early access. So that's another, I think, thing that makes it more difficult for this game to succeed, just because Steam often has a slightly more suspicious relationship with early access games than a full 1.0 release, because you are buying a cheaper version of a product that isn't quite finished yet. And some people in the past have done that and been disappointed by what then went on with the developer later down the line. And some people think, well, I'm sure it's great, but I'd rather wishlist it and wait for it to fully launch before I buy it, because I'm not really interested in playing a game that isn't kind of fully ready yet. So early access games tend to also have a slightly lower launch. But then against that, it will be cheaper than the full price at launch. So some people, if they're excited by the game they see, just think, fine, I'll buy it, whatever, let's do it. Anyway, I'm going to guess 63 reviews week 1. Dice and Fold.
Yeah, so these people know what they're doing.
I'm really rooting for these people. Yeah, so this is everything about this page tells me these people, A, really care, and B, have read about what you need to do. So they're doing everything right. They're doing even everything from the custom art on the sides of the broadcast video at the top of their Steam page, to being in the Next Fest Steam Festival with the demo, to having a content roadmap, to launching in 14 languages, which I can only dream about.
Oh, Jesus, I missed that. Okay,
yes, and they are, again, doing a very Steam-friendly card battler that's very popular right now. So a lot of the things I already see make me think this game is actually done by a really professional team who really are doing everything right. Against that, though, even though it's a very popular genre, as soon as you make a card battler, you are putting yourself against some of the greats like Slay the Spire, and there's a lot of other games out there like this. So that's, they've got to stand out, which is difficult. They mentioned in a blog post 2 days ago that they have 26,000 wish lists, which puts it at something like 173 reviews week 1, based on a rough Boxlighter estimate. So I'm splitting the difference between this and another number that I came up with, and estimating 150 reviews week 1.
So everything you said, there's a point about, I think competing with things like Slay the Spire isn't so much of a problem, because...
Yeah, you always say
people,
that.
Yeah, well, I'll come back to the next one, because there's something relevant to say with the next game. I think, I like the art style here. I find it very calming, but I'm not sure that calming is the right vibe. It's quite low key. A lot of card battlers tend to be the sort of Hearthstone thing of swing, crash. So I think that might... be a down multiplier effect, but they clearly know what they're doing. I wonder if Balatro had any influence on the development of this game. Clearly, it's been in development longer than that. Balatro was a hugely successful sort of,
and we're not at all jealous,
poker themed, casino themed.
They did very well.
He did very well. I think it was one.
It literally was one developer. So that's why we're not at all jealous. It's fine. We're cool with it. It's fine.
Yeah, so I think something that's more explicitly sort of skymorphically cardy dicey often does well. And given you say it's been localized into all the languages, I'm going to bump up my estimate slightly to 120.
Ocean World, Eden Crafters.
Yeah, I'm going to buy this game.
It is your kind of game,
and I don't think it would do very well. I know what I'm getting into it. There's a sort of reassuringly square habitation module, but I know you knock down the trees, you pick up some rocks, you collect enough iron and copper ore, and you can build this, and then you probably get inside, and that means you don't have to worry about atmosphere as long as it keeps the power going, which you fuel with the trees you just built, something like that. And it's got production and tech, and they're doing sort of Satisfactory like things. And I like the Interstellar style menacing wave. This is a free prologue, I assume free, to a larger co-op base builder game. Now, I like it a lot. I unfortunately suspect it's not going to do very well. These folks had another game, Technicity, which didn't do gangbusters. It did decently. And I think, I said a moment ago, it's not always a bad thing to be doing a game like other people's, because they know what kind of thing they're getting into, and they want to chop and change. Often, when I've played a survivally game. I want to play another survivally game. But I think a co-op survivally game is a harder sell, because it's a little bit like when every 6 months some other big dev used to come out with their MMO, which nobody played because they're all playing World of Warcraft. If you're competing for group time rather than play time, I think often it's hard to attract people away from playing Icarus or Valheim or whatever else is soaking up people's time at the minute. So I'm going to say 50 reviews, but it's free. Is it free?
It is free.
Yeah. So that throws things off, and I don't really know. But I think we're talking sub 100 reviews week one.
Yeah, I have very similar thoughts. I mean, this is you're an expert on the genre because you play lots of these games.
I'm a guy who plays. I'm so not an expert.
Well, it doesn't mean you'll get the numbers right necessarily, but it does mean you know what the kind of thing that players like in these sorts of games, right? Better than like a shoot 'em up or something.
Yeah.
So everything you said, the free game will affect the numbers in a positive way, but whether or not that affects reviews, I don't know, because it's a slightly unusual product, right? I thought initially it was a game, but it's not. Like you say, it's actually a free game, which is a prologue for an upcoming game called Eden Crafters, which is doing something slightly different than the usual prologue, which is when you put up a version of a game for free that's a demo and you call it My Game : Prologue. And then, people use that as a discoverability tool and a sort of beta testing tool. So I honestly don't know what the response will be to this, but I'm going to guess 43 reviews week one.
One more thing I was going to say is these guys, from my extensive research through the medium of Google, are French. There was another...
Are they French?
Yeah, terraforming game from France, from a very small studio, I think about our size, called Planet Crafter, which did brilliantly the last couple of years. Just came over early access. It's on 35,000 reviews or something now. So I think there was something about changing your environment that people respond to well.
Yeah.
Then again, Planet Crafters was a really sort of over the top immediate changing of environment. I don't know. So I wouldn't be totally surprised this is a breakout success, and I really hope it is.
This is a tough one to call.
Yeah.
And our final game. Single by choice.
Yeah, this is weird.
I mean, I think it's absolutely classic based on the porn games that I have seen in the popular upcoming things and tried to estimate. It's a classic porny visual novel interspersed with very basic platforming. The thing I think that it's doing well, as far as I can tell, is it knows exactly what it is. It is saying, I am a porn game, I have some anime style situations, and there's boobs. So I'm going to estimate...
But you're running around the platforms, the lady's trying to catch you, and then they catch you, and there's this elaborate backstory, you've got special magic...
But this is a classic. This is what
I don't understand Japanese games. I don't understand porn games.
I'm estimating 107.
The Japanese is not. That looks like Chinese. I don't know.
I think it's Chinese, but it doesn't really make a difference to the numbers.
No.
107. What are you estimating?
60. My soundtrack with clicking on the things was. I went quite quickly from to ooh. So it's quite porny. 60. I'm guessing.
And those are our games for the first ever edition of the weather forecast.
You're going to put a whole list of the numbers of the things we've done afterwards. People can look and decide what's right and wrong.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is, like I said at the start, if you have estimates for what you think are going to happen to these games, then please put them in the comments. We'd love to see your estimates, and I bet there's some people out there who are better at this than we are, much though we try. And when we do our next episode, we're going to start with a recap of the week one sales figures from all the games that we talked about this week, and we'll be able to say, oh, yep, we got that one right, or Lamau, we totally messed up on that one, that did much better than we anticipated, and here's why we think it is. And hopefully we can over the course of time, you and I and everyone watching both will build up a better sort of sense of the kind of games that we can expect to do well and the kind of games that maybe are not going to do as well as others. So yeah, join us for the next episode and see how wrong we were.
Thank you for your time.